The Marauder's engine screamed like a wounded animal as the ship careened through the void, every system pushed past its limits. Captain Elias Kane gripped the command console, his knuckles white against the flashing red alerts. Behind them, filling the rear viewport with an impossible black silhouette, the derelict matched their speed effortlessly, a predator toying with its prey. "Rivas, give me more thrust." Kane barked, his voice raw from recycled air and tension. The pilot coughed wetly into her sleeve before responding. "She's already at 112%. Cap structural integrity won't." A violent shudder cut her off as something impacted their aft shields. The lights flickered, revealing the angry red burns creeping up Rivas's neck where the mimic's acid had splashed her. Engineer Jax felt cursed from the sensor station, his usual bravado replaced by a tremor Kane had never heard before. "It's hurting us. Every time we try to change vector, it cuts us off." His fingers flew across the console, pulling up a star map that glitched unnaturally, like it knows exactly where we'll. A new alarm shrieked. Mira Suva, their usually unflappable science officer, sucked in a sharp breath. The energy signature, it's changed. Her dark eyes reflected the scrolling data. "It's mirroring our warp frequency signature, learning our technology." Kane tasted copper. He'd bitten through his lip. "Options." Myra's hands hesitated over her console. "We could attempt a blind jump. Random coordinates outside map space. With half our NAV systems fried." Jax laughed bitterly. "We'd be space dust before." "I can rig something." Rivas interrupted, her voice tight with pain. She turned, revealing the full extent of the burns crawling up her jawline. The skin had taken on a sickly gray pallor, veins darkening beneath the surface. "Decoy probe with a fake warp signature. Might buy us 10 minutes. Kane made the decision instantly. "Do it." "Jax, prep the probe." "Mira, find us somewhere to run." As the crew sprang into action, Kane watched the derelict on the view screen. It loomed closer, its surface now pulsing with faint crimson veins that hadn't been there before. The black hull seemed to drink in the starlight, making the ship appear as a tear in reality itself. The probe launched with a flare of artificial warp energy. For 3 glorious seconds, the derelict hesitated. Then, with impossible precision, it pivoted and destroyed the decoy in a burst of plasma fire. 9 minutes 40 seconds. Jax muttered. "It's getting faster at..." He froze, head cocked toward the ventilation shaft. "Did you hear that?" Mira frowned. "Hear what?" Jax's face went ashen. "Nothing. Just nothing." The comms crackled to life with a burst of static, resolving into a broken distress signal. "Any vessel, this is Research Outpost 89. We have containment breach. They're in the walls." The signal dissolved into screams before cutting off abruptly. Myra's console lit up. "Origin point matches a classified science colony. Silent for 23 days until..." She trailed off as coordinates appeared on screen, just 4 hours away at their current speed. Kane studied his crew. Rivas's hands shook as she piloted, her burns visibly worsening. Jax kept glancing at the vents, his shoulders hunched. Only Mira seemed steady, but Kane saw how her fingers lingered near her sidearm. "It could be a trap," Kane said aloud. Mira met his gaze. "Or our only chance to understand what we're fighting." The derelict's crimson veins brightened suddenly, forming a pattern that made Kane's vision swim. For a heartbeat, he saw something vast and terrible behind its black hull, an intelligence watching them with ancient hunger. "Put it to vote," Kane said quietly. The crew's eyes locked onto the coordinates glowing on the screen. Somewhere ahead, either salvation or damnation waited. Behind them, the hunter closed in. Jax broke the silence first. "Better to die fighting than running." Rivas nodded weakly, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Mira input the course correction. Let's see what they were researching. As the Marauder banked toward the colony, Kane watched the derelict's reaction. It didn't pursue immediately. Instead, it seemed to consider. The crimson patterns shifted into something almost like satisfaction. Kane's stomach turned to ice. Whatever waited at that colony, the derelict wanted them to find it. The research outpost hung against the starfield like a broken toy, Its docking ring scored with deep grooves that gleamed under marauder spotlights. Kane studied the damage through the viewport. Not the neat cuts of tools, but the ragged tears of something clawing its way in. Or out. Scans show atmosphere, but no life signs, Mira reported, her voice tight. Power still running, though. That's not possible after 3 weeks dark. Rivas coughed into her sleeve, the fabric coming away stained black. They left the lights on for us. How thoughtful. Her attempt at humor fell flat as another spasm racked her body. The veins beneath her burns had darkened to charcoal, pulsing unnaturally. Jax checked his plasma torch with trembling hands. I say we burn the whole place from orbit and waste our only chance to understand what we're fighting. Mira pulled up the outpost schematics. They were studying these things. There might be... A metallic screech cut her off as the outpost primary hangar door shuttered open, revealing a yawning black maw. No welcoming committee. No explanation. Just an invitation. Kane made his decision. Mira and Jax search the labs. Rivas and I will check the reactor. If this is a trap, I want control of their power source. He hesitated, eyeing Rivas's worsening condition. You sure you're up for this? Rivas drew her sidearm with exaggerated care. I'll live long enough to be useful. The look in her eyes said she knew it was a lie. The airlock cycled with a hiss of stale air that carried the faintest tang of copper and something earthy, like freshly turned soil. Kane's helmet lights cut through gloom, revealing corridors lined with emergency lighting that flickered like a failing heartbeat. The walls bore the same claw marks as the docking ring, but here they formed patterns, spirals that made his eyes ache to follow. Reactors 2 levels down, Rivas whispered, her breath fogging her visor. Why does it feel like we're being? A distant thud echoed through the station. Then another, rhythmic, deliberate. Kane's grip tightened on his rifle. Move. The descent into the station's bowels felt like swimming through murky water. Each shadow seemed to twitch at the edge of vision, resolving into nothing when examined. The thudding grew louder, resolving into something that almost sounded like a heartbeat. They found the reactor chamber sealed behind a blast door covered in warning decals. Kane's scanner showed full power output, but the radiation readings were all wrong, spiking in patterns that mirrored biological neural activity. Someone modified it. Rivas breathed. They turned it into a wet crunch sounded behind them. Kane spun to see Rivas collapse, her helmet rolling away to reveal the full extent of her transformation. The burns had spread across half her face, the skin splitting to reveal glistening black cartilage beneath. Her fingers spasmed, the nails darkening and lengthening into claws. Kane, she gasped, blood bubbling at her lips. The signal is not for help. Her back arched violently as something beneath her skin pulsed. It's a dinner bell. Above them, the station's PA system crackled to life with a voice that wasn't human. Welcome home. Meanwhile, in the research labs, Myra's light reflected off rows of containment tanks, all shattered from the inside. Jax kicked a shard glass, his torch casting wild shadows. They weren't keeping them out. They were keeping them in. Mira studied a nearby terminal, its screen frozen on a dissection report. They were studying the Mimic's hive intelligence. Look. She pulled up a video file showing scientists observing a captive specimen. The creature sat perfectly still until, without warning, every subject in adjacent cells simultaneously rammed their heads against the walls. Subject Alpha demonstrates quantum entanglement properties. Mira read aloud. Damage to 1 unit is instantly compensated for by. Jax grabbed her arm. You hear that? A skittering noise came from the vents above them, then a wet, rippling sound from the corridor behind. The emergency lights flared red, revealing dozens of shadowy forms crawling along the ceiling. Myra's breath caught. They're hurting us. Back in the reactor chamber, Kane cradled Rivas's head as her body convulsed. The blast door groaned under sudden impact, denting inward with each blow. Rivas's fingers dug into his arm, her eyes wide with terror, and something else, a desperate clarity. Reactors broadcasting, she gasped. Coordinates. To Earth. Her body arched again, tendons standing out like cables. They want to go home. The blast door buckled. Through the gap, Kane saw shapes moving, some still wearing tattered lab coats, their faces stretched into impossible grins. Rivas shoved him away with surprising strength, her hand closing around the grenade on his belt. "Tell them." Her voice distorted, deepening. "Tell them we said no." Kane ran as the first tendrils burst through the door. He didn't look back at the explosion. He didn't need to. The station shook violently, the lights stuttering as the unnatural signal finally cut off. He found Mira and Jax in the corridor, surrounded by twitching mimic corpses. Their faces told him they'd seen the same terrible truth. "The derelict," Mira said quietly. "It's not just a ship." As if summoned, the view screen at the end of the hall flickered to life, showing the black ship now docked with the station. Its hull pulsed crimson in perfect time with the fading reactor's death throes. Jax made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. "We just turned off the music. You think it's pissed?" The station shuddered again as massive tendrils erupted from the docking port, burrowing into hull like roots into soil. The screens flashed a single line of text before shorting out. "Containment failed. Welcome home." The station groaned like a dying beast as tendrils of black metal punched through bulkheads, curling through corridors with terrifying purpose. Kane sprinted toward the docking bay, his boots slipping in viscous fluid leaking from ruptured pipes. Behind him, Mira and Jack struggled to keep pace, their breath coming in ragged gasps that fogged their visors. "Rivas!" Mira asked between strides, though her eyes already held the awful truth. Kane didn't answer. The grenade's detonation still rang in his bones, along with Rivas's final words. "Tell them we said no." He gripped his rifle tighter, the weapon suddenly feeling as useful as a child's toy against what was coming. They rounded a corner to find the path to their ship blocked by a pulsating wall of biomass, strands of black fibers weaving themselves into a living barricade. Jax ignited his plasma torch with a snarl. "I'll carve us a—" The ceiling collapsed. A nightmare of jointed limbs and too many eyes dropped into their midst. This mimic wore no human disguise. Its true form stretched the boundaries of anatomy, all whipcord muscle and glistening cartilage. It moved with the jerky precision of a marionette, head tilting as it studied them through compound eyes that reflected their horrified faces 100 times over. Mira fired first. The round punched through its chest with a wet crunch, spraying black ichor that sizzled where it struck the deck. The creature didn't flinch. Instead, it opened a vertical mouth lined with needle teeth and emitted a sound that bypassed the ears entirely, a psychic scream that made their vision swim. Jack stumbled back, clutching his head. "It's calling the others." Kane switched his rifle to incendiary rounds and fired. The creature became a thrashing torch, its shrieks rising in pitch as it burned. The biomass barrier recoiled, fibers retracting like scorched nerves. "Run!" Kane grabbed Myra's arm as they leapt through the shrinking gap. The docking bay yawned before them, their ship sitting like a precious jewel in a nest of writhing tendrils. The Marauder's engines were already cycling up. Someone had activated the pre-launch sequence. Jack skidded to a halt. "That's not possible. We're the only—" The airlock hissed open. Standing in the threshold was Rivas, or what remained of her. The burns had consumed half her face, revealing blackened bone that seemed to shift beneath the skin. Her remaining eye rolled wildly before fixing on them with terrible focus. "Almost left without me," she rasped, her voice layered with something deeper, older. The station shook violently as the mimic horde closed in from behind. Kane raised his rifle, but Mira knocked the barrel aside. "Look." She pointed to Rivas's hand, clenched white-knuckled around a detonator. The dying reactor's emergency override. "She's fighting it." Rivas's body jerked like a poorly handled puppet. 30 seconds. Each word seemed torn from her. The thing inside her was learning, adapting to its new flesh even as Rivas's will resist it. "Go. Now." They dove past her into the ship as the first tendrils breached the bay. The airlock sealed with Rivas still outside, her ruined face pressed against the viewport. For one heartbeat, Kane saw the woman she'd been brave, irreverent Rivas who'd flown them through 100 close calls. Then the detonator's light turned green. The explosion tore through the station in a wave of purifying fire. The Marauder lurched violently as a shockwave hit, throwing them against bulkheads. Alarm shrieked as the docking clamps tore free, sending the ship spinning into the void. Kane hauled himself into the pilot's seat, hands flying across controls. The view screen showed the station coming apart in slow motion, the derelict ship caught in the blast radius. For one glorious moment, he thought they'd won. Then the black ship emerged from the firestorm unharmed, its obsidian hull drinking in radiation like nourishment. Its surface rippled, crimson veins pulsing in patterns that formed symbols just beyond comprehension. "It's not damaged," Mira whispered. "At all." Jax collapsed into the co-pilot's chair, laughter bubbling hysterically. "Of course not. We just fed it." He pointed to the scanner readout. The explosion had dispersed something, clouds of microscopic particles drifting toward nearby jump coordinates. It wanted the station destroyed. Those spores, they're broadcasting. The derelict's engines flared to life, but it didn't pursue them. Instead, it turned toward the spore's trajectory, gathering them like a shepherd tending its flock. The comms crackled with a transmission that wasn't sound, but something deeper, a vibration in the bones. Myra's translation software spat out a single phrase before overloading: "Harvest complete." As the black ship jumped to warp, leaving them adrift in the sudden silence, the Marauder's hull echoed with 3 distinct taps, then 3 more, coming from the exterior maintenance hatch. Jax's face went ashen. It left us a parting gift. Kane powered up the weapons console, his reflection grim in the darkened screen. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. Outside the hull, the knocking grew louder. The knocking became a heartbeat against the Marauder's hull. 3 measured impacts, pause, then 3 more. A perfect mimicry of human distress signals. Kane kept his sidearm trained on the maintenance hatch, while Myra's fingers flew across the engineering console. "Atmosphere sensors show nothing in the airlock," she reported, though her knuckles were white around her own weapon. "But the exterior cameras are—" The feed dissolved into static, resolving for 1 fractured second to show a single blackened finger tapping the lens. Jax let out a strangled laugh. "It's polite, knocking first." His humor died as the ship's internal comms crackled to life, broadcasting the same wet, clicking sound they'd heard on the station. Kane moved first, rifle steady as he approached the hatch. "Jax, seal the inner bulkhead. Mira, override the manual release." His breath fogged the visor of his hastily donned helmet. "If this thing gets loose aboard." The knocking stopped. Silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Then the ship's computer announced calmly, Asterisk, hull breach detected. Deck 3, Section 2. Asterisk, Myra's head snapped up. That's cargo storage, not the airlock. Realization dawned. It was distracting us. They ran, boots pounding through narrow corridors, now bathed in pulsating emergency lights. The cargo bay doors were sealed, but something wet and dark oozed through the seams, eating through the metal like acid. Jack skidded to a halt, torch flaring to life. Whatever got aboard is melting through containment. We got maybe 5 minutes before. A scream of rending metal cut him off. The doors burst inward, revealing a nightmare landscape. The cargo bay walls rippled with black tendrils that sprouted jagged, tooth-like protrusions. At the center stood Rivas, or what had been Rivas. Her body had elongated, joints bending the wrong way. One arm fused with a cargo crate in a grotesque merger of flesh and metal. Her remaining human I rolled wildly before fixing on them with desperate recognition. "Kill me!" The words bubbled from a mouth that kept splitting wider, revealing rows of needle teeth. "Before I show you home." Myra's weapon wavered. "The spores, they're still connected. She's fighting it." Jax's torch sputtered. Not for long. The transformation progressed even as they watched, Rivas's spine cracking audibly as it reshaped itself. "We have to." Rivas's body convulsed. When she spoke again, the voice wasn't hers. It was layered with something vast and ancient. Asterisk, we remember Earth. We remember the cradle. Asterisk her. Asterisk is asterisk. Head jerked toward the starfield visible through a nearby porthole. Asterisk, we bring gifts to children. Asterisk, Kane fired. The incendiary round struck true, engulfing the abomination in purifying flame. It shrieked, a sound that came from every speaker on the ship simultaneously, as the fire spread through the corrupted cargo bay. "Seal it!" Kane grabbed Myra's arm as they retreated. Jax welding the doors shut behind them. The fire would consume the oxygen in that section, along with whatever nightmare had taken root. Back on the bridge, the damage report scrolled relentlessly. Hull integrity at 68%. Mira read aloud. But the spores, they're gone. Burned out. Jax slumped into his chair, hands shaking. For now. His eyes flicked to the sensors, where the derelict's warp trail still glowed faintly. It's heading somewhere, and it called Earth to Cradle. Kane studied the navigation console. The coordinates from Rivas's final transmission glowed ominously. Not Earth, but something far more disturbing. This is a colonial science outpost, abandoned after the first contact wars. His blood ran cold. It's where humanity first found alien ruins. Myra's breath caught. You think that's what it wants? The ruins. Outside the ship, the last embers of their firestorm faded to nothing. The knocking didn't return. But deep in the Marauders' damaged systems, something stirred. A single line of corrupted code replicating itself in the darkness. Jax didn't laugh this time. I think it's going home. The stars stretched silently before them, infinite and uncaring. Somewhere in that vastness, something ancient was waking up, and it remembered humanity. Kane powered up the engines. They had a warning to deliver. If anyone would believe them,